My career sucks.
Sex just isn't the same.
What's my purpose?
Where did this fat come from?
My relationship is killing me.
I'll never be happy.
My debt is piling up. I'll never find love. Why can't I be like other gay guys? Hey guys, it's time to get a grip, stop whining, make a bold move, and do something amazing with your 40-plus gay life. Let's get to the show with your Tell It Like It Is host, Rick Clemons, who does his best to never act like a dick or a diva unless you act like one first.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of 40 Plus Gay Men Gay Talk. Here we are rolling into August already. It's kind of crazy. Before you know, it's going to be September. But before we do that, just remember, we always have the Gay Men's Chats that happen the third Tuesday of each month. And sometimes the things we aren't chatting about are the things that at 40, 50, 60, 70 years old as gay men, we still haven't addressed. It could be shame. It could be addiction. It could be our behaviors that are changing because we're getting older. Things don't work quite the way we want, mentally, physically, but we wrap it all up in these places of shame. Doesn't do us any good. Well, today, I hope you will kick back, listen, tune in to my guest. He's an MD. He's written a couple of books. The new one is coming out in the next week. So just mark your little Amazon purchases down right now. His name is Frank Spinelli. He has written a book earlier on in his career about Boy Scout years. We won't go deep into that, but we'll touch on that just a little bit. But the whole point of this conversation today is get the compass focused on fixing some of this stuff and working through a framework that can really help you dump the shame, move through anything that's holding you back, and get you into a healthier space in life. He's been an advocate of men's health, and I just want to say I'm so excited, Frank, that you are here today. Not only to share a book that's about to come out, man, congratulations. That's really cool.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I was really excited about this. I love the whole idea of this podcast and the audience, and I can't wait to speak to you and your viewers.
Well, thank you. And this is where Rick just shuts up and I just say, okay, Frank, tell us all about the book, move forward. But I would do that. There's days I'm like, I'm just so done with it. I love my podcast. But I was attracted to this specifically because as a guy who came out later in life, the shame was super, super heavy. I know I'm not the only one. I'm not the poster child for guys coming out late in life. But that shame that we all carry around coming out and being gay, and sometimes the things that have happened to us in our younger life, similar to your story about in your book, P.S.H.I., it's a heavy weight. Mm-hmm. And yet I don't think a lot of guys that are in our age range, 40 on up, have ever completely addressed this. And I have a feeling that's part of the reason you brought this book into fruition. Would that be a true assessment?
It would be the exact assessment. You hit the nail on the head. I mean, for most gay men over 40 and above, shame was installed before we even had words for what our identity was. Our body knew beforehand, but our mind didn't. And the body learned to hide what it knew. So you can remember that. We didn't realize we were gay, but our body did. And those early somatic shames are the deepest kind because it predates whatever narrative we were telling ourselves. And you can think your way out of something, but you never knew your way into it. And so we carry that. And particularly with your demographic here, 40, 50, 60, 70, and above, there are many different types of shame affiliated with gay men. Yes. Certainly the most pronounced is the AIDS crisis. We grew up through that. And that was a specific strand of shame. We have survivor shame, caretaker shame, the shame of desire before we even knew what desire was associated with death. Remember that? Yes. Silence equals death. I'm going to speak for myself, but we grew up thinking I am inevitably going to become a person living with HIV and I will die from this. Now, setting that aside, what happens, lo and behold, when you're a gay man is that all of a sudden you start to get older. And what happens?
No, we don't get older.
Yes, you do.
It's
And the
not
premium.
happening. It's not happening.
Well, it happens, and
Okay, thank you for letting us know that.
for some of us, the premium we placed on youth and the physical appearance, what was so important to us in our youth, turns turns negative for many people when they turn
Right.
40, 50 and above, and it often triggers a second wave of shame, and that is the shame of invisibility. You are no longer what the community idolizes. You are now drifting into the background. And for many gay men, that is a hard pill to swallow.
Yep.
But even aside from all of that, which is very specific to gay people, growing up as a young gay child, for many of us, we grew in a disparate way from our own family. We weren't, for most of us, we weren't like our parents. We weren't like our siblings or our
Right.
friends at school. Many of us were taunted or bullied. So you grow up holding that secret, that trauma, and that trauma stays with you. And what we find later on in life is that children who experience trauma in the past grow up to be adults who want to revisit that trauma to make it right. And we often mask that pain with drugs, alcohol, sex, eating disorders, steroids. You can name it, and gay people are going to be part of that conversation. So for myself, who had a traumatic childhood, as somebody that I wrote about in P.S.H.I., where I was molested when I was 11 to 13 by my scoutmaster, and the book is about me bringing him to justice decades
Right.
later. But I thought, with years and years and years and years of therapy, I had it all figured out. I had become a
Right.
physician, I was a writer, I was a success. And then something happened that happened to me, that happened to you. 2020 happened, and we all went through the COVID pandemic. And that isolation really made me understand that everything that had been holding me together, the pillars of work, of socializing, of community, were suddenly all gone. And at the same time, I was in the midst of a class action suit with the Boy Scouts, and I was re-traumatized again with a 47-page questionnaire that I had to fill out in graphic detail. And I had a shame spiral. And I really thought, I'm not going to recover from this. But fortunately, I realized that I cannot hide or run away from shame. So here's the pro tip I'm going to tell you and all your listeners. The shame will never go away. What you do with it is important. We survive by managing our shame. We built lives around it. We built beautiful lives for some of us. You told me a little bit before we went on air about
Right.
you and your daughters. Our work now isn't about survival. It's about learning to live without the armor that we wore because we needed it to get here. And that's what the C.O.M.P.A.S.S teaches. And so I developed this framework of 7 steps that transforms shame from a weapon, which is what we think of it as,
Right.
into a diagnostic tool. It is no longer something that is indictment, it is information. And I think if you follow the steps and you really understand what shame is trying to tell you, it will lead you home, it will lead you to yourself. And so we cannot run away from it. We have to use it to understand how we can move forward.
It's really interesting because back in March of this year, I got cut loose from the company that I worked for because long story short, we were shutting down.
Right.
And then at the last minute, somebody else bought it. And then I wasn't part of the equation. Now, I'd sat in those seats before. I had sat in some of those seats where I was making those decisions, right? Even as that was happening, I was making a decision which of my team members was being kept, right? And as it unfolded, I started feeling, okay, I'm just done. I just want to be done. This isn't a path. And I was, my masculine energy was really up, I can handle this. This is all good. I'm going to go back to just doing my coaching and, obviously keeping the podcast going. And then a couple of months into it, shame hit. Like, what did I do wrong? What did I do that made me the one that didn't get kept around? Even though I didn't want to be kept, I'm being really candid and honest, guys, and with you, Frank. But it's so funny how our little egos play these games, right? And then suddenly I went through a whole period of a lot of deep shame. Like, I'm not contributing enough to our family income right now. Who am I? Who am I ever going to be? Because, oh, my identity was all of this. And did I screw up so bad somewhere along? All of it was stories, right?
Right.
But I feel like this is what happens so often, whether it's shame because you lose your job, whether it's shame because you were, physically abused as a child, shame because you spent all these years in the closet and then finally came out, and the shame of ruining. I don't care what it is. I don't care if you've been sleeping around as a young gay guy for years and years and years, and suddenly you hit your 40s and like, wait, the hookup scene isn't for me. There's those moments. And having a guide, having a compass, using your, your words, can really help. So you felt this, you've been through it, you had the other book, and this thing started to hit through the isolation of the pandemic and everything. And I don't want to give away all the tools because I want guys to go buy the book. I want them to go get the book. What was one of the first things you realized for yourself as this started bubbling to the surface? Like, this is the catalyst. I need this because why?
Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, I want to acknowledge what you just said, because you really encapsulated many, many men's stories. So we talked a lot about what gay men experience that's unique to them. But the number one reason men feel shame is because they feel that they cannot provide for their family. They feel that they are doing a disservice to their family because they're no longer the man of the house. That's a tremendous amount of shame and guilt. And what you also talked about was that inner voice telling you, what did you do? This is the quintessential difference between shame and guilt. Guilt is, I did something wrong and I feel badly about it. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Shame is, I'm wrong, I'm bad. And that voice in your head is an intrusive thoughts. It's an unreliable narrator. It's telling you a narrative you are willing to believe, even though thoughts are not necessarily facts. So to answer your question, I came about a moment where I was thinking, why did this happen to me? I deserve this. I was a bad kid. I deserve everything that happens to me that is bad. And then I realized I didn't do anything bad. This happened to me. But I could be a victim of the universe, or I could rally and realize that this is something I can use to help me. So it immediately conjured up this idea of a compass. And I said to myself, I don't have to go back and confront the past. So the first C in the compass mnemonic is confronting it. O is observing it with compassion, not with judgment. And then the map, which is what really struck me, was what is the source of this? And it was the molestation. But you know what? I had done so much therapy. I didn't think I needed to go back there. I just needed to understand how to move forward. And I think where many people who would benefit from the book need to understand is we don't have to go back to square one. We can pick up right here and say, what is this teaching you? Because I was working in a corporate job and I had a very narcissistic manager. I loved him, but he was a narcissist. And he used to talk to me in a way that was very triggering. I would clam up and I couldn't speak. And one day I just said, what's happening here? And I have these 4 P's that I recommend you anchor your whole life. You have to learn to pause. So when he was talking at me, I paused and I pondered and I said to myself, what's happening here? Why am I feeling this way? And then I realized in the moment of presence, this is my child molester. I'm hearing that. He's triggering the young Frank Spinelli, but I'm not an 11-year-old boy. I'm an adult man who's a doctor. And when I realized that, and the 4th P is I saw the possibility. So in that moment, I had to turn it around and say, I hear you. I'm going to need a minute. I needed to collect myself and commandeer the situation, because all too often when we're triggered, we react. And then we have what we call the hangover of regret, because we feel like, oh, I hated that I became that person. I hated I became shrill. Why did I let him get the best of me? And so you have to learn to really manage it. And it takes time and it takes skill, but you are, again, I realized that, to answer your question again, I was not a victim forever. I was not a victim of the universe, and I had to do something about it. And that was the turning point for me.
I think so often though, and I'm gonna start with men, because so much of the conversation I always have around this stuff, it has to do with men and our masculine constructs, right? But then you layer in the gay male experience and this ability to even stop and pause and realize I don't have to be the victim. It's too easy to be the victim, because as gay men, we have been told you're not good enough, you're too feminine, you're this. So our victim energy is so embedded in most of us. I'm not saying all of us, but there's very few gay men that I've met that energy is not deeply embedded. And it's actually interesting, Frank, because my training as a coach, this is where we talk about the energies, the energy levels. And the lowest energy level is the victim energy. And you cannot move forward if you are wallowed in that victimhood. It can't happen. And to navigate out of it it's totally possible. I love that. The possibility is the fourth P. But you can't get there unless you give yourself pause to embrace and accept, okay, yes, I am acting, thinking, being the victim. It's interesting that you said that, because that when I had that moment, the moments right after I got laid off, I was like, figure this out. You got to do this. This is what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to make money. I couldn't get, honestly, I couldn't get shit done because I was so there was no room for the possibilities to start to show up. This is such a powerful piece of the puzzle that you just laid down with the 4 Ps. As guys step into this work, what do you feel like is where many men, but then we'll go to gay men, they get hung up? Okay, here's the Frank, this MD, this really cool guy that's wrote this book. He just laid down these 4 Ps. Where is it that you feel like in the 4 Ps most men struggle the hardest?
Yeah, I can tell you that without a shadow of a doubt. What we often do, is we read something and we think we are going to implement it right away. Well, that's a falsehood, because you haven't really put in any work. And I know that's a buzzword, but here's what I would like you to do as practice for your listeners. Pausing is very hard to do when you've been activated, right? How are you going to pause when you're already pissed?
Yep.
What I suggest you do is in everyday life, when you're talking to your best friend, when they're talking, don't get ready to answer their question or jump on their period. Give them a second. So you just said something to me. How do we do this, Frank? And I pause and I count to 2. And I say, that's a good question, Rick. And then I give you my answer. Practice, that might be the 5th P. Practice this in everyday life, because if you think you're going to implement it when you're activated, you are sorely mistaken. So we have to do this in our everyday conversations. And I do this at work a lot, where someone will talk and I'll nod and I'll say, yeah, I got it. You know what I think. And then you go into your answer. When we jump on the end of someone's sentence, it shows them that you're not really listening. And the truth is, you're not. You're just waiting to respond. So pause. Be present. We often are not present in the moment. Like in the back of my mind right now, I'm thinking, wow, what a great opportunity this is. I'm sitting down with Rick. We're talking about my book. We're talking about an audience that's near and dear to both of us. I'm appreciating it right now. And I think something else that you talked about earlier is we often aren't living in the moment because we're too busy on our phones. We're too busy being witnessed of the event instead of living the event. And I don't know about you, you mentioned coming out later. I was also someone who came out later, but we didn't have the apps then. I mean, I met my husband before that. I could not imagine meeting somebody strictly online and then trying to communicate. I mean, it must be really difficult to navigate that. But again, it's trying to have that human connection, looking into someone's eyes, listening to them, hearing them, smelling them, and feeling what that energy, you mentioned energy, feeling what that energy is between us, but always acknowledging the pause. I'm present in this moment. And wait, look at this possibility. We're talking about my book, how lucky I am. And then what that could mean, the possibility. So again, the short answer is practice. Don't wait for the event that's going to trigger you, because you will not be able to do it, because you will be blinded by rage, likely, if you're anything like me.
Now, I could just jump right in right now and respond, right? But this is one of those things. And this is something I've really had to work on as a podcaster, because you just delivered nugget after nugget after nugget, right? And I could just go, well, wait. And there's still times I jump in. Most of the time I try to jump in when I can make some comedy out of what just occurred. As you were speaking through all of that, it's so interesting how art imitates life and life imitates art. You're talking about being present in the moment. My husband and I just came from this past weekend seeing Hell's Kitchen in Los Angeles. And it wasn't because it was about Hell's Kitchen. It actually got me thinking about, think how many times when you go to the theater, the last thing they say is, please turn your phones off and silence it. You could not be present for a theater production if your phone was there. Case in point. Love him to death. Little Ben Platt, loved the guy dearly and all his performances and Dear Heaven Hansen, all that stuff, right? A few months ago, we went to see him in LA when he was doing his one-man show. And he came out and said, I'm not going to tell you all to put your phones away or anything. I want you to take videos and all this stuff. It was so distracting. I took a couple of photos, but there were people around me who had their phone up the whole time videotaping. And I'm like, I couldn't enjoy the show, right? And I'm like, are you really enjoying this? Because are you actually watching this? Or are you more concerned to what am I going to be able to post on social media? Who's going to know that? And it was not being in the moment. And so often we aren't in the moment. And again, I'm telling truth on myself, guys. And some of you had written me and said, Rick, quit talking over your guests. I'm like, okay. I really focus on that space now because I realize as a professional speaker too, the power of the pause is the moment that the magic can happen. And we have to give ourselves that same power, guys, as we work through our shame, our ability, and the practice every day. And too often we go, okay, help me here, Frank. I need you to just wave your very gay magic wand on me and take this away. It doesn't happen. And I'm glad that you shared that the way you did, because it's we're in such rush these days. Yeah. Because of the phone in our hands. I believe that there's a whole don't even get me on that soapbox, but what are you most proud of about this book right now, Frank?
Oh,
I know it's just coming out, so don't say, the numbers are great. It's sold. I'm like, bitch, it hasn't even come out yet. So I know preview copies and all that makes a big difference. Right. But in your heart of hearts as the author, like, each of us has those moments. What's something you're really proud of right now?
I think what I'm most proud of was that when I read it after it was completed and I was ready to submit it, I felt like I was so present when I wrote it. When I wrote P-Shy, I think I was still very traumatized. I was writing it as a survivor who was in the midst of a detective story. And just to give you and your listener, I wore a wiretap with the police. I mean, I'm an everyday guy. Here I am in extraordinary circumstances wearing a wiretap twice with the police and working with Child Protective Services. So when I wrote the book, my one regret is I think I wrote it too soon. I think I needed distance, but I wrote it. I'm very proud of it. This book, The Shame Compass, I felt I written it as a professional, but also someone who had experienced it, who realized that, listen, I'm not 40. I'm older than that. And having that distance and that clarity and honestly, that wisdom really helped shape the book into something that when I read it, I thought, yeah, this is what I wanted. This is what I set out to do.
Hmm. It is interesting, the distance that happens. And when you give yourself, I'm going to come back to the pause, but mine has been a long pause on what I'm about to share with everybody. And many people are sick of hearing me talk about it. But I started book number 2 literally February 2020. So right at the pandemic. And we're still here talking about it, but I'm glad it hasn't happened, because in the last couple of weeks, I've been in my I'm still unemployed, things gotta happen sort of mode. And something came into fruition that I wasn't expecting. I had the name of the book and all this sort of stuff, right? Finally, I made a pact with myself, you're trying too hard. You're trying so hard to get this thing out there. Mm-hmm. Drop it for now, not ever. Drop it for now and move on to some other stuff. And it's been interesting to see that because of that, the direction, the title, the way I want this book to show up in the world has completely changed. Yeah. And it's because I believe it's because I took the breath. I became really present with it. Of course, now I'm looking at it going, great, do I have to rewrite this whole dang thing? But I don't think I do. Now, according to Claude, if anybody knows who Claude is, Claude AI, I've had it analyzing okay, well, here's the book. Do I need to rewrite this if this is where we're going? It doesn't, because what's beautiful, I think, about these moments, Frank, and I'm sure as an author you've had it, is there's going to be some self-doubts. Is this really the direction? Is that what I really meant to say? Blah, blah. That's a whole night of drinking a bottle of wine and going, okay, I don't recommend drinking a bottle of wine and trying to write your book. That just, the two don't go together. But I find it interesting that break has given me clarity. And it sounds almost like you had a good hit with, P-Shy. I had a decent hit with Frankly, My Dear, I'm Gay. But as soon as you said, I don't know that I was aware, and I was just a regular guy wearing a wiretap, I wasn't wearing a wiretap because I had a wiretap on there. Everybody would have known exactly what was going on in my life the whole time I was in the closet. But I don't feel like I'm glad that book came out for me, but now I feel like I have clarity. I have clarity what I'm trying to say to gay men of our age. That's a big difference. And I think that clarity is what many gay men right now are looking for. Do you see that in our community? I'm talking now, it's really gay guy to gay guy. I think there's just a whole lot of gay men searching really hard right now.
You know what I love about what you just said? In the book, in my book, there was a moment where I talk about the parallax, which is the way we measure the distance from the Earth to the moon, and you do it from 2 different points. So imagine this: if I'm in the driver's seat and I'm looking at the speedometer, that's a dial, it'll say 60 miles an hour. But if you're the passenger, when you look at the speedometer, it doesn't look like it's on the number 60. Doesn't mean it isn't. It is. Sometimes you need to move. So what you just did was you wrote your book. You were stuck, let's say, for lack of a better word. And what you needed to do was pause. And in that pause, it not only gave you some distance, it gave you clarity because you had another perspective. That's key. And I think that's what the Shame Compass offers gay men now, is a perspective that is unique because I am gay and I wrote it. And it's not that what happened to me is not universal, but I think gay men will appreciate that it came from somebody with, it's a queer voice. It's undeniable. I talk about my relationship with my husband in the book because it was necessary. So that's why I think for you, I'm very happy that you found that opportunity to take a break and look at what happened. All of a sudden, look what emerged, a new title, maybe a fresh perspective. something, a different way to look at the same material. It didn't change too much. It's just you're sort of like, what did Carson Kressley say? You're zhuzhing it.
Yeah,
You're
zhuzhing
going
it
to give
just
it
a
a
little
zhuzh.
bit. Yeah, exactly. And if I've been drinking that zhuzhing straws like that instead, but anyway, but you're right. And I mean, I don't want to steal your thunder, but as you've been talking about Compass, it's interesting to hear what you're bringing to guys is this reckoning. Okay, if you don't start to deal with the shame or the things that you're just not coming to, then your compass is just going to be pointing you the same old direction and nothing's going to change.
And you will be
Ironically,
destined.
the reckoning is what my new book is called. It is the reckoning.
Oh, oh, wow.
And the moment I had is, it sounds so similar to like what you did with the compass, but complete different protocol as well. And I finally, relationships with spouses, right? Like you can talk about stuff, but you're like, I don't want to take them too deep in this stuff because they're like, really, I don't want to be your business manager. So while we were driving to LA to see Hell's Kitchen, I said, I'm going to just work on the new stuff I've been writing for the website and everything. I'd like to run some stuff past you. So the original book was called Perfect Detour, a gay man's guide to navigating, I don't know, navigating your own bullshit or something like that. And it was landing really, really well for a lot of guys. Okay. This is when you learn to love your spouse really well, more than you normally will tell them sometimes, right? And I said, well, I've decided to change the name of the book to The Reckoning. And he goes, really? He goes, I like that. And that was a moment that I realized I needed to stop and just take it in, breathe into it, own it, and go, is this what I've been looking for? Is the new way forward? And not just because my husband said it, but what's been interesting is a lot of people have suddenly started. I mean, even your little reaction, like, oh, The Reckoning, it caught some attention there, right? And now I know it all comes now down to the positioning and everything and what it's going to actually do for guys. And there is 6 steps into it. It's like drawing the line in the sand, owning stuff, all these sort of things. I have a feeling based on what you've shared so far. And again, I don't want to reveal everything because I want you guys to go buy Frank's book. I'm going to say that again until you just get it pre-ordered right now. You can pre-order it today. You can do that. I feel like it's important to have these maps, these, we'll use your word, compasses, to navigate through these things. Right. Because when we don't, the pattern continues. The pain continues.
Right.
All of that. And I feel like what you're putting out there into the world, Frank, is let's break the patterns. Let's break through the pain. Let's give you another alternative versus, okay, well, this is what happened to me. If you sat in your shame from what happened to you as that young boy, how successful would you be right now? Do you think?
Yeah.
It's so prevalent for all of us. As you have gone through this and you wrote the book, what was one of the things that you feel changed and helped you grow the most from having gone on that journey?
Well, I strongly believe in a lot of child work, certainly because I had been a child when the trauma happened, and there's various different ways of doing child work, but just many people write a letter to their 11-year-old self. I felt the most important thing was to just forgive myself, to give myself permission not to be the victim anymore, and to understand that this is a process. I am becoming the person I want. And one of the things I live by, besides the 4 Ps and the compass, is that if you don't spend some time in your week futurizing the life you want, guess what's going to happen? Life will happen to you instead of through you. And so I started making real, substantial decisions after 2020 of this is what I want, this is where I want to be, have short-term goals, long-term goals. And, whether I want to learn a language, whether I want to ride my bike to the gym instead of, taking the car, or I want to write a book, whatever it is, imagine what that future would look like. And I strongly feel it. And some people would say this is just, making it happen. But I'm talking about realistically, what could you do and what do you want to do? Because guess what? Especially as we get older, things happen to you every day. Parents get sick, you get sick, people break up. You have to just be prepared to understand that if you want something in life, that you have to imagine how you will do it, because it's not going to just happen for you.
I try to imagine how I will grow hair back on my head, but that isn't going to happen. So, and I don't really care because I love being bald. But with something that you just said, I mean, there's a lot there. There's almost a moment I was going to interrupt you and go, "Girl, this is an Oprah moment. Come on, let's do this here." But there is that space when you realize I can't let this just keep happening to me. I've got to, take control.
Right.
One of the things that so my other profession, the one that I no longer, quote unquote, no longer involved in, so to speak, I've built a new business that I'm hoping is going to continue to take off. We required our people in the program to build a vivid vision, very similar to what you just described.
Yeah.
Vision 3 years down the road. This has already happened. It is what you're living and breathing and doing. And we required them to once a month, once they wrote the vivid vision, to revisit it. Whether they did or not, by the time they did, we're doing that part, they only had 2 months left in our program. But I cannot tell you the number of people, Frank, and I'm in touch with a lot of them because some of them are starting to do some work with me over in the other area, who have come back to me and said, that vivid vision exercise is one of the things that has pushed me forward the most, kept me focused in my lowest days when I'm like, I'm never going to make any money doing this speaking stuff. The vivid vision is what carries them forward. And the beautiful thing, guys, is you can do this vivid visioning, thinking your future. It's not like, ooh, here's my crystal ball. Oh, wait, it didn't happen. Some of it's not going to happen. Let's just be realistic. Some of it's not going to happen. But the more you give yourself the hope, the possibility, you see it. I did this with a client not long ago. Well, I guess it's been a while ago. Probably 2 years ago now. And I'm thinking about it. He envisioned being in a healthy relationship with somebody that he truly, truly loved at a deep level. We're talking about a guy who had himself on every hookup app there was. He messaged me probably 2 months ago and said, it's happened. I'm getting married. And this guy is phenomenal. So in my typical quippy coach bitchy voice, I said, really, bitch, what changed? Did you listen to your vivid vision finally? I said, I love you. That's why I said that. But I'm glad you brought that up, because I think you can have the C.O.M.P.A.S.S book, right? You can hear things like what we talked about today, but if you can't see it, believe it, and buy into it yourself, and keep that see it, be it, and buy into it yourself alive, you're doing yourself a disservice. Just my perspective. So.
I agree.
Okay, so Frank, have we solved all the gay men's problems here in this conversation today? I want to make sure that we set out and got that done.
Yeah, I think pretty much, yeah.
Okay. Well, the book is coming out next week, guys. Again, we're going to have all the links. Okay, we're going to have all the links to everything. Frank, you have been a gem to talk to. I'm glad we connected. I want to give somebody your book on my dime. So when it comes out, guys, don't do it now. But as soon as it comes out, you're going to be hearing this right as it comes out. You can message me and say, hey, Rick, I would really love a copy of Frank's book. I would be glad to send it to you on my dime, because I believe it's going to be worth your time. I've seen some previews. It'll be really good. So any last little nugget of wisdom you want to leave the listeners with, Frank, around stepping forwards, using your compass, finding yourself, anything that, I'm looking for the Oprah moment, man, because if not, I'm cutting this whole thing and we're done here. But something that maybe you haven't got to say that you'd like to.
Well, the final word is, I want to say thank you for having me, but more importantly, just remember that shame isn't the enemy, it is a compass. And instead of asking, how do I get rid of it, try imagining what it's trying to tell you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, there's your Oprah moment, boys. There's word there. Preach on, brother. Well, thank you again, Frank, for being here. Guys, thank you for listening and being, this is my joy factor in my life. One of my biggest joy factors is being able to do this podcast and have these conversations. And Frank, you brought it home. Guys, there'll be another episode just around the corner. I don't know what it is because I haven't booked the guest yet, but it's going to be good. I can promise you that. So, but anyway, thanks everyone again. Frank Spinelli, go get his book. It's coming out next week. If you want a copy, let me know. And between now and then, just keep on going out there, living your life. No fears, no excuses, and no apologies. And we'll be back in just another week with another episode of The Bald Guy and 40 Plus Gay Man Gay Talk. Have a good week, everyone.
That's a wrap for 40 Plus Gay Men, Gay Talk, where size doesn't matter. We drop our bullshit, get over our screwed up fears, make bold moves, and live life without apologies. Don't forget to join us on Facebook at 40 Plus Gay Men, Gay Talk, where the conversations continue.